Welcome to episode 36 of the Legacy Driven Marriages podcast. What's going on, everybody? It's time to get into the marriage arena. It's time to have some fun, and it's time to have those candid conversations you only get here on how to strengthen your relationship. I'm your host, Walt McKinley, and as always, I'm here with my beautiful partner in crime, Stephanie McKinley.
Hey, everybody.
As we get started today, make sure that you hit that subscribe button. And if you love what we're putting out, we would love if you would do a review wherever you're listening to this, because let me tell you, it helps bump us in the algorithm and it helps us get more couples into the marriage arena. And, you know, I
We
think
need that.
yes, we need that. So look, today we're talking about really the hardest job that we'll ever do as human beings, and how to ensure that we balance our marriage with parenting.
It's the ultimate challenge, let me tell you.
Yes. How do we make sure our relationship does not suffer in the process? How to make sure we maintain our own individuality as well as our couple identity and still be these phenomenal, amazing parents and keeping our relationship strong in the process. And let me tell you, we know from firsthand experience, it is not easy.
All too well.
You know, Stephanie used to joke around a little bit when the kids were little, man, they're like little terrorists.
I still say it.
Oh man, they're hard, man. They ask you questions all day. They want something all day. They throw temper tantrums. I saw a meme the other day, and it had this little boy in it, and it said he's screaming and crying, and he's like, "I want my banana," and the banana's literally in his hand. And for those
And that's real.
yes, for those of you guys who have parents or have children, you know that's exactly what it's like. Or you're trying to get them ready for school, and I remember Steph would have these cute outfits for the girls, and they would be pissed and wanting to get their own outfit, and they're just like the most ruthless, like self-centered. They got to do it their way, people ever, and maybe partly because Steph and I have very, we could be hard-headed sometimes and stubborn ourselves, man. But these beautiful, amazing children that you created that are literally the puzzle pieces that complete our humanity.
I'm like, that's funny because that's why I call them terrorists, because imagine trying to negotiate with a terrorist. That's what it's like. They don't negotiate.
Yeah, no, they don't. They don't. They're like, I'm wearing this mismatched outfit with 4 pairs of socks at the same time and my sandals, even though it's 21 degrees outside. I don't care if you like it or not. I'm just going to throw myself on the floor and throw a temper tantrum until you let me do
I
it.
still have PTSD from that era where they throw tantrums. They were throwing temper tantrums, and then I felt like I would end up having a meltdown. Trying to deal with them.
Oh man. I mean, how many parents, but especially moms, right? Let's be real. You guys most of the time bear the brunt of all of this. How many moms out there have just went back in the room at some point and started crying because you just can't even take it anymore? Or you go try to hide in the bathroom. You ain't even using the bathroom, but you close and lock the door. You see the little fingers up underneath the door. Mom, 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 mom,
Yeah,
mom.
we thought the bathroom was like the one sanctuary where you could have some peace and quiet to yourself.
There's no sanctuary.
No.
Not when you're dealing with little children terrorists.
Bedtime, that's your sanctuary.
If you're lucky, if they're not thirsty 40 times or they didn't pee their bed or they
This
didn't,
is true.
they have one more question or I just love you. I just want to give you one more hug. I'm like, man, you are so manipulative. That's so good.
Oh yeah, they'll come with everything they can to stay up.
Oh man, guys, look, we understand what this is like. It's tough, man. Steph and I's relationship, we see people struggle in their relationships in a couple different periods. One is when you first get together and there's this real norming and storming process that happens with just living with another human being 24/7 and learning each other's quirks and how each other work. And then you move into and learning compromise, and then you move into this parenthood stage. And it really is, it's some of the best times in your life. But man, when they're small, it's some of the hardest times of your life, and it's so easy to get disconnected in your marriage. We know this firsthand because that's when we struggled the most. It was like over the course of a couple years that we just didn't put intentionality behind our marriage. I think even maybe sometimes we thought we were, but we just weren't.
Right.
So we're going to really give you guys
Not
some
enough.
things you can do today, starting right now. As soon as you listen to this, you can start executing on these strategies now. and lessons learned that Stephanie and I really had from not doing those, and our marriage really struggling at that point, when the kids were, from the time that they were born until, gosh, I don't know, probably really until maybe they were 8 to 10 years old. Somewhere in there, we started to figure some things out, and so we want to keep you from going on this roller coaster that tends to happen to a lot of couples.
Yeah, I have to say, this balancing act to me was the hardest part of my life, I think, was
Hmm.
trying to balance adding children to the mix, and nothing really prepares you for that. It's a trial by error kind of thing,
Yeah.
and it takes a lot of trial and error to get it even somewhat right. I mean, I think most of the time, most of us feel like we never get it right. We never really, we kind of always feel like we're failing a little bit in this area because it is so hard to find the balance. And that is what we're striving for, but it's so hard to get. Um, and like he said, I definitely feel this one very personally because I was a stay at home mom for the whole time my oldest daughter's been home. And it's like we said, it's a constant struggle. I mean, even today, I like I said, I'm not joking about this. I really have PTSD from a lot of what I dealt with during that time. It's still, I mean, I can look back on that and get emotional because it was some really hard times, but also some of the most beautiful moments too. And if you do find the balance, which at some point we did find a much better balance, and then it's so awesome. Like you just there's nothing like it having your family and being able to share in those moments with them, and it's truly beautiful and magical, and like I said, there's nothing like it. So
Well,
we
you know what though, like, let's talk about balance for a second, because I think everybody thinks that there needs to be a balance, and we strive for that. And when it's not happening, then I feel like we feel guilty or we feel bad individually, or we start to feel burnt out because we're not even balancing what we personally need as a human being. There's never really perfect balance in anything. I think there's different seasons for different things and for different lessons and for different challenges and for the opportunity to overcome and build another level of resilience. But so I don't want you to feel like when Stephanie's talking about balance, don't think, okay, I've got myself, my marriage, my children, and my job. Let's just say four things. I need to balance 25% of all of those. There'll never be perfect harmony in that. I think it's more just catching when one piece of that is really slipping and ensuring that you put some intention on that part of where the struggle is to get better harmony in all of those. And I also think it's realizing, especially when it comes to career and work aspirations, because I had those and I worked outside the home. There were times when I prioritized that because I felt like the next level of money or promotion or whatever was the most important thing. But what I realized over time was really the quality time that they spent with me is what they wanted. And prioritizing work over that for me personally now, and with the additional wisdom of being almost 47 years old, if I had to go back and do it, I would do that part differently. Where the promotion and those things are going to happen, but if you're not being the best version of you, none of it's going to happen. At the end of the day, when the job's over and the career's over, you switch companies and they replace you right away, your family is what you really have left. So prioritizing your marriage as number one and then prioritizing your kids as number two, that's where we need to really focus our attention. And if we're going to focus on finding harmony and balance, let's put that there, because you can always go someplace else and make some more money. And that I couldn't have told you that 15 years ago.
yeah, hindsight. Right, hindsight's 2020.
Yeah. It's perspective based upon lived experiences that create wisdom.
Oh my gosh, do we know that?
And Steph, talk about the need to put your marriage first. Like, what does that really do for the family unit and the kids, especially?
Well, yeah, the first tip we were going to give you guys today deals with not neglecting your identity as a couple because we we fell into that trap.
Hmm.
Um, we didn't prioritize the marriage first. We were prioritizing the kids, and I don't want to say that that's wrong, but you got to find a balance of both. I mean, and it gets really hard to not get swept up in your kids because they do need you so much and they need you for everything in the beginning. But it is really important because if you don't pour back into yourself and you don't pour back into your relationship, you're going to be this empty shell that can't be there for your kids or your relationship or you. So eventually, we say that the marriage is the foundation of the family. And if you don't prioritize the marriage and put intention into the marriage and that crumbles, everything crumbles. That's what ends up happening is, and we know firsthand because this literally happened to us. We didn't put enough intentionality for nurturing our relationship.
Hmm.
And so that led to almost the demise of our family because we didn't nurture that, then there would have been a divorce and our whole family would have been separated. And honestly, in the long term, that's what happens. And then you're not doing any good for your kids because now you've left them with the trauma of your relationship not working out. And
Right. And you're as parents, you think and you tell your kids like, I love your mom, like I love your dad, and all of a sudden, I don't really love them enough to stay. And it takes two to tango, right? So your relationship, you got to at some point draw a circle around yourself and focus on the person inside that circle and say, like, how am I contributing to where things are at? And it's so easy. You think you're putting your kids in sports, and maybe both of you guys have work, and you've got your kids just the day-to-day stuff you do and schedules and all these different things. It's so easy to let your relationship go on the back burner. But I think what we learned is, even though our kids were little and they really don't remember it now, when we were struggling the most, our kids felt, there's no way to me they couldn't have felt the tension between Stephanie and I, because we didn't cuss, we didn't yell at each other, we just didn't say anything. And there's no way the kids don't feel that. They don't feel that warmth, the hugs and the kisses that they normally would see their parents do. So I think the more you realize, and for us, our spirituality is found through God. So you put God at the top, because you need to be able to give your pain and give that frustration and give that angst to something besides just carrying it around. Then you've got underneath that, you've got you and your spouse. You guys were married and you guys were in love and you guys were happy long before you ever had kids.
right, like kids didn't happen and
Right.
only because you have a relationship.
Right. Like kids happen because, some things happen once you get together. Little fun time happens, right? What we call a boom boom. I don't know what you guys call it in your house. My sister calls it a double snakes. I'm sure you can imagine what that means. Everybody's got their funny little name for intimacy and sex in the bedroom, but that stuff typically, and then the kids come, right? And sometimes it's early. Oops, we have children on the way. And sometimes we were very blessed that we just got tired of going out and having fun and doing those things. It wasn't fun anymore. We wanted to create a family. That's what both of us wanted. And within a couple months, Steph got pregnant. And wow, all the things people told us, we weren't ready for none of it. Tried. Steph read books, all the things. So like Steph talked about, never neglect your identity as a couple. I think you got your individual identity you have to keep, and then your identity as a couple. And don't think that it always has to be a date night. We got to schedule a date night, and the date night we have to go out and we got to pay $50 to a babysitter, and we're going to go to dinner, and dinner's like $367 to go to McDonald's now because inflation's so ridiculous. And you're thinking, forget it. We're not even going to do it. It's just too much. Like, we can't even really afford it. We couldn't afford that when the kids were little. In that way, don't always think that it has to be a date night out. There's date night ins you can do, and it's way more about the quality time that you spend with each other.
Right. I was going to say it's more about, I think when you put the kids to bed, and I know because I've been here where, you're thinking in your head the list of all the things you need to do because you never get time without the kids in the way, getting in your way and doing things. And so you have all these chores you need to do and this list of stuff. And really you just want to relax and veg out. But that is the key time that you also have to put a little bit into your relationship. So even if it's only 15 minutes, it's 15 minutes of uninterrupted time with your spouse where you're actually looking at each other and talking to each other about your day. Have that check-in time somewhere. And it doesn't have to be when they go to bed, but I think that's a great time because they won't be interrupting. But
Like,
if
once they're actually asleep, they won't
I
be
think if
interrupted.
you whatever that time is in your day where you can find uninterrupted time that you can actually talk to your spouse without them interrupting, and you can sit and look at each other and put your phones down and everything's off and you can kind of just check in with each other, let let each other know how your day was, or where you're struggling or whatever that is. But just some conversation time between you two, and the cuddling is great too. I think any of that kind of stuff it's great. You just need that check-in time with your spouse that you can even just, you know, like go, commiserate with each other about everything
I know.
we're going
About
through.
your little terrorists
Yes.
and how amazing and beautiful they are and frustrated they are.
You'll probably end up laughing because some of the stuff they do, it just, when you look back on it, you're like, oh, it just makes you laugh because it's so ridiculous sometimes. Like he said, like they could literally be holding the very thing that they're crying about, and they just, the poor little things, they don't know how to communicate. So that's what they do.
They communicate with emotion, not logic, most of the time. I know you guys feel that. And I think Steph just went in and gave you most of the things for number 2 right there. So number 1 is never neglect your identity as a couple. Number 2 is effective communication. And Steph, you brought up a good point. Again, we talk about micro versus macro moments. You guys have heard on other podcasts that we've done. We get so focused on the big things, the date night once a week, the date night. We didn't do date night once a week. It was more like once a month for us, but at least every couple of weeks, you're waiting for this moment to reconnect. No, don't wait for that. Like she said, at nighttime when the kids go to bed, when they're actually finally asleep, when they're not coming out to tell you they love you one more time or get a drink or go pee or whatever it is, they're actually asleep. Put the phones down and turn the TV off and sit for just 15 minutes and give your spouse your undivided attention. Because when you do that, when you're really looking at each other and you're turned towards each other and you're talking and you're commiserating or you're joking around about something that happened in your day, or maybe you just need to get some things off your chest from the day. And guys are not great at this, which is why we suffer in silence with our mental health a lot. There's a connection built when you can talk about your day with your wife, fellas, and you can really just talk about how frustrating something was, and then you're not hanging on to the frustration, and you end up being happier, a mentally healthier version of you, which strengthens your marriage and your family. It's like this cascading effect that happens in this positive life cycle that you get into in your relationship. And when you can do that and be good listeners, and you can say thank you for things, and you're just engaging with each other and you're just listening to each other, and one day it's commiserating, one day it's hopes and dreams, one day it's frustrations about your personal day. Those things are important. So try to just take 15 minutes to connect with your spouse every single day. If you're intentional every day, you'll probably hit 5 nights a week, which is still great. But if you think it has to be an hour, you're probably going to hit 2 nights a week. So do small chunks.
And by the way, there's a tip I heard from another couple who they're a lot like us. They're older than us, but we really relate to their personalities. And she's like me, where we're not morning people. We're more of a night owl, and our spouse isn't necessarily. Like, well, it can be, but not always.
Yeah, I still like to get up in the morning and get moving.
And so there were times at night, and I know a lot of mothers out there are like this, because you're trying to cram in all this stuff when they go to bed that you didn't get to do, that maybe you compromise with your husband and like you kind of go to bed with him and you have your fun time, and then you get back up and do the things you needed to do and let them go to sleep, if that's what works for you. Because I wish I would have heard that a lot earlier, because it probably would have helped our relationship a lot. Because that was me. I was always like, trying to get as many things done as I could while they were not awake, because it was so hard to do when they're awake. So,
and ladies, fun time is code for sex. Just men know already. I just want to make sure you ladies understand. or that lower sex drive person in the relationship understands. That's what fun time is code for. So there's no misunderstandings there. You could go handle that business and then get back up and do what you need to do. But your partner is not laying there pissed off that you're trying to do something or just watch a TV show maybe. And they're laying in bed thinking, I just wish they would come in here and just touch me at all, just brush up against me at this point. There's some real tension that happens with that when people don't make time for that.
Real, yes. It's very real. And I think both parties can really win if you do that, because that is what happens. Like, women are like, have all these things running through their head that they got to do. And men don't always necessarily, at least this was the case in our situation, because I stayed at home and he went to work. So all of my stuff was at home. So I was always thinking of all the other things I need to get done. And he was just thinking like, I need to get to bed because I got to get up in the morning. And we need to find that time together and you'll be too tired. So
Yes.
I just think that's a great way to find that balance and compromise.
Or wake up on a Saturday morning and lock your door first. You'll probably be more refreshed and it'll be even more fun. So, before the kids come in there banging on the door, because we all know how that goes too. Mom, Dad, just Jesus, give me 32 more seconds. All right. So we talked about never neglect your identity as a couple, effective communication. We gave you guys some tips you can start using right now for that. And this third one's really important. Like, share your parenting responsibilities. There were times, Stephanie, so I'm a military guy. I grew up with chaos and no schedules and no anything. So for me, having schedules in my home was really important. Not over the top, like knife hand, it's got to be this way or the highway, but I felt like, and thank goodness Stephanie did too, and you got to get on the same page of this as a couple, you guys, because we've seen people, their relationships really struggle because they undermine each other as parents. Get your kids on a schedule. You can't just let kids do whatever they want whenever they want. They got to have some constraints and some boundaries to truly be happy and healthy. You're letting your kids stay up till 9 or 10 and they're 4 years old every single night. They still wake up at 6 or 7, 8 a.m. You're letting them stay up at 9 or 10 and you wonder why they're pissed off and cranky and it's causing an argument between you and your spouse. Like you guys got to communicate, get on the same page, get on a schedule, and then share some of the responsibilities. So I
By the
went,
way, I'm just going to share this because part of that, because you talked about having a schedule and that bedtime is really important. And so
yes,
making that as routine as possible for your kids, I feel like is the best way and easiest way to keep them. They're still not to say that they're not still going to get up because they still do, but we had a routine where it was like we start the routine by like you have a bath that tends to calm
mm-hmm.
them for one. Then we would read a book and we would say prayer and then we would kiss them goodnight and we leave. But that was the same routine every single night. So they knew what to expect and they knew what that was and it prepared them for bed. It's not to say they didn't still get up at times
Yeah.
and stuff, but it was enough that it made them pretty consistent on going to bed at a pretty normal time.
I think it's always the 80-20 rule to me, life, period. 80% of the time, if you build consistency in whatever it is, you're going to get that result. 20% of the time's the anomaly that things are just going to go sideways. But let me tell you what, our kids had a lot less meltdowns because we kept them on a schedule. They knew when the bath started running, it was time to start bringing it down a little
Right.
bit.
And if
And
you create those routines, you're
mm,
like setting them up to be like they're being calmed with those activities. Like if you're reading a book, it calms them and starts making them ready to go to sleep. It's important to keep, you just have to build that in. You have to do it
yeah.
because that's the only way you're really going to make it to where they consistently go to bed. They have to know what to expect.
Well, and then you can get in a routine as a family because, guys, this is a team effort. This isn't mom does it all or dad does it all. This is truly a team effort. This is okay. Stephanie would go, I would bathe them sometimes. Stephanie would bathe them sometimes. So it would be one of us in there bathing them, the other one doing the dishes from dinner. It would be one of them reading while somebody else did something else. If you really make it a team effort, and Steph stayed at home, so she bore
Or
the
we kind
brunt.
of took turns. One night, one of us would read. One night, the other one would read. We kind of all said prayers together,
Yeah,
and that was
yep.
all
Hmm.
together at night. So,
Well, there were times because Brianna and Monica were different ages. You would read to Monica, I would read to Brianna, vice versa. Like you're right. We knew what the routine was. There were some expectations for the kids. They knew what was coming, and that was bed. But also, it allowed Stephanie and I to say, okay, every night around this time, we're going to hit this routine with them. They became very well adjusted to that routine. We knew after that routine was over, 80, 90% of the time, we were going to have a pretty quiet night the rest of the night and be able to spend time together. So when you could have those expectation management, I talk about a lot, when you can have those expectations there, man, you it's easier to kind of jump in and help and do the things that you need to do together and make those different things happen so that when the kids are actually down, everything within reason is
mhm.
done. Sometimes laundry, there's always something to do, right?
I was going to share too. Another way we kind of shared, this came up the other day actually. I don't even remember how, but we, it was like on weekends, we took turns because the kids were definitely going to wake up early no matter what. So even on a weekend, even though that's our time to sleep in, it was like they're going to be up. So we started to take turns. One of us would get up with them and, make sure they got breakfast, turned on some cartoons, like be up with them. And the other person got to sleep in. And we took turns doing that so that nobody felt like, oh, I never get to sleep in. And like we both need that. So
But that goes back to number 2, effective communication. Stephanie talked to me about that. Like, hey, like I just need a day to sleep in. And I'm like, okay. And then based upon what was happening or who was the most tired, we would discuss who was going to sleep in on Saturday and who would sleep in on Sunday. And then we would both really get up on those days. And that process does get easier over time.
At some point they get up on
And there's times, it's funny to me because like I've tried to help Steph fold laundry, right? She will refold what I just folded. Fellow, how many of you guys out there have a spouse that will redo something you just did? It drives me friggin' bananas. So finally one day I'm like, I'm not going to fold laundry. I'm not, you fine. You got your own way. You could fold laundry. But what's cool is I'll go in there, not every time. I'll go in there and I'll talk to her while she's folding laundry. That's an opportunity for us to connect too while she's still accomplishing tasks, or she'll come talk to me while I'm doing something. So I think there's opportunities there to still spend time together and get the stuff done, because I know as a parent and as an adult, adulting's tough and there's just stuff that needs to get done sometimes. So it's just building that intentionality with it and making sure that you're sharing parenting responsibilities and building the routine and complement each other with the tasks. And when you're both doing those things, the amount of time you spend together, then it's easy to get 15 minutes of connection time in versus hard. But you've got to put systems even in your relationship to make things more efficient. And that's I'm a process improvement guy. That's who I am. That's what's made me successful in my career. Everything is about efficiency. and sometimes not my efficiency. Sometimes it's the way Stephanie sees it. That's caused conflict. I promise you guys.
Yeah, we don't always agree on the most efficient way to do something.
And so let's move on to number 4. So we had never neglect your identity as a couple, effective communication, sharing parenting responsibilities,
and your support network. This was hard for us because we were a military couple and we didn't have our family always close. Almost actually never in our most of our relationship, we've never had family close. So we really had to build a support network of our neighbors, our friends, and trading off with them. And there was a point where we lived across from a neighbor when our kids were young, and she noticed just how much we never went anywhere, never got out without the kids, that she literally offered to watch them for us so we could have a date
No,
night.
she told us. She said, you guys, I love how you guys are as parents. You guys never go do anything as a couple. I'm watching the kids for you guys. And they were quite a bit older than us. She could just see it. And by the way, what they didn't know is our relationship was really struggling because we never went out. She said, I'm watching them. So pick a night. Let me know what night. And if you don't pick a night, I'm going to pick one for you. And we're like, yes, ma'am.
But then there was also around that time, we had met some other military couples that kind of were in our neighborhood, and we started to take turns with each other and try to help each other out because we knew the struggle. And, you have a partner, like for us, my spouse would leave a lot on, like if he had deployments, or sometimes they were just
training operations or whatever. Yeah.
There were a lot of times where he would leave and I was on my own, and I tried to go back to school when they were little too. And there were times where I was like, I had to go take a test and I had no one to watch my kid. And I'm like, oh, I reached out to a friend really quick because she was home also, and she took her for me. And I can't tell you how much that stuff really helps. Like your support network is everything. And when they say it takes a village, it really does. You really can't do it on your own. You have to have
a village never thrived when there was just 2 people in it trying to do everything themselves. You ever seen that naked and afraid show? It's crazy when there's 2 of them, they can accomplish a lot of the basic necessity of just to stay alive tasks, and then somebody goes home and there's only one person left and they're literally doing firewood and fire and water. They're trying to find any kind of food and they're whittling away, and they're like, over the last 21 days, they lost 28 pounds. First of all, I'm like, maybe I should go naked and afraid and lose some weight. But second of all, you can't do something by yourself. And by the way,
I tried.
And by the way, like when you called her to watch the kids that day, man, didn't it feel good to know you weren't alone? And okay, thank goodness I can go take this test. And I don't have to stress because they're well taken care of at the same time. And you didn't really use that very often.
I'm one of those people. I really struggle to let people help me. I struggle to ask for help and I struggle to let people help me. I really do try to do everything on my own. And, but there were some moments, like I said, there just comes times where you don't have a choice. Like you really can't do it on your own. You need help.
I don't think you really ever have a choice. You do, but the choice that you make to do it on your own all the time just isolates you. And then you feel disconnected from people and you feel alone. And there's all the emotions that come along with that. So it's really easy to kind of move into that mode. You need to have a support network, which means you have to be able to put yourself out there a little bit and get outside your comfort zone. Every 2 to 3 years we move. So the first year wherever we moved, it was hard because we didn't know anybody. We didn't really have friends at the new place. Typically the base, everybody lived all over the place because it was really expensive to live right by the base. So military had its own challenges, but if you live in a town with people that you've known and you've got family, utilize your support network. Talk to your family, talk to your friends, trade date nights with your friends. Where you watch their kids one time, they watch yours. Utilizing a support network, man, it makes you feel like you're not alone. It lets you know people will rally for you. You don't end up isolating yourself in your relationship. And then everything around you thrives because of it.
And I also came to find out, because like you said, we moved a lot too. So we were new in places. And so you don't necessarily just trust anybody to watch your kids. Right. So there were times like, but it's a lot better in this day and age where I've even found like you can go to like they'll offer services where they'll
Like
watch your
date night.
kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like there was a gym we used to go to in Virginia and they started having a monthly date night in the gym. And so they'd offer childcare
The
while,
YMCA did it too, where you could drop your kids and then go for like 3 hours, and it was minimal cost. I mean, $10 an hour for both kids.
yeah. So there's a lot of services out there now that can help you too. And I highly recommend taking advantage of those.
Yeah, for
Totally
sure.
worth it for your relationship.
Yeah. So look, guys, we talked about 4 things you can start doing now. I mean, we could probably talk about 20 things you can start doing right now, but we always try to break things down and pick the ones that are most meaningful to us, because we want you to have tactical takeaways that you can start implementing now that'll change the fabric of your relationship, and make you a happier individual also. So talked about never neglecting your identity as a couple, and that includes you too. Effective communication, sharing parenting responsibilities, and then making sure that you build your support network. These are things you have the choice to start implementing right now. And some of it isn't going to happen overnight. You got to build habits. They say it takes 21 days to build a habit. You got to build the habits, and you got to get on the same page as a couple so that you both are moving towards common goals together and what this will do for your marriage. And as you create a more powerful marriage, as you give each other a kiss and your kid's like, ew, or they're giggling, right? They're laughing. What you're doing is you're showing them what a loving, strong relationship looks like, what a loving, strong marriage looks like. So not only does it benefit you and your spouse, but it also benefits your kids, and it will benefit your legacy more than we probably ever even realize when we're living in that moment. So take time and prioritize these things.
Yeah, I love that you said we kind of did forget. We kind of left that out on our under the not neglecting your identity as a couple was be open with your love in front of your kids, and so true. Like them seeing you hug and kiss and hold each other's hands, and even though they may say ew, for them that feels like safe and secure, and it's really good for them. And versus if you're not doing those things, it will make them feel uneasy. And, we don't want to go to that. We don't, we
Yeah.
don't even want to know where that leads, but that's what happens. So we just want to stress that that's really important to do in your relationship. And that was something that one of the biggest things we took away when our relationship was struggling is that we did lose touch of doing that. We weren't holding each other's hand. We were holding our kids' hand. And there was a lot less of just us in general doing that, giving each other a hug, giving each other a kiss. We lost all that in the mix of taking care of them because they were getting the hugs and kisses. They were getting us holding their hand. We were cuddling with them. But it's important that we still do that with our partner too. We have to be really intentional in finding those moments to do that. It is challenging at that stage, very challenging. I'm not going to lie, but it's so worth it. And we can't stress it enough because we definitely found out the hard way. Use us as
Yeah.
the cautionary tale. Don't do it.
Yes.
Make sure you're being intentional with your time with your partner, and sharing those responsibilities is huge. You want to feel like a team. It's a team effort, and it really does take a team effort when you're raising kids. You got to do those things together. And I told Walt earlier, I feel like a broken record, but I communicate, communicate, communicate. I can't say it enough. So if you're feeling like you're doing all of it alone, communicate to your partner that you need their help. Communicate to outside family and friends that you need help. You know, like I said, there's just times where your partner physically can't help you, can't
Yeah.
be there. So you have to be able to rely on other people. And trust me, like I said, I was really bad about this. And partly for that reason that we were kind of in a new place a lot and it's very hard to reach out to people. But I learned the hard way to get uncomfortable, put myself out there so that I could have that. And my kids needed that. And it was good for them too. So with that,
Yeah, I think just be 1% better every day, guys. Over the course of 6 months, it's a really significant difference in who you will become and where your relationship can go, and even how you show up as parents, and um, showing up as the best version of who you are for the people that you love the most. And so this podcast isn't just about you, though. This podcast is us, not only us building a community, but listen to this podcast with your spouse. We really challenge people to do this on every episode because it will unlock conversations
Mhm.
that every couple needs to have. So if you've listened to it and you're like, man, that's some good stuff. I like that stuff. I'm already subscribed. It's easy to go find us again and listen to this specific episode with your spouse. Let us help you have those conversations that we all need to have. And also join our Facebook community, and join the Instagram page if you prefer Instagram, or even we're on TikTok at Legacy Driven Marriages. It all matches. Go to our website, www.legacydrivenmarriages.com. Sign up for our blog that we're going to be creating and sending out every couple of weeks. Like, stay connected, get in the arena with other people fighting for their relationships. You got to be around people that you want to be like, and make sure that you keep that intent, stay in the arena. And look, guys, we're going to wrap up today. So until the next time,
Keep fighting for your marriage, keep loving each other, and keep elevating your legacy. We'll see you next Tuesday.
see you guys next Tuesday.